So pleased to be joined by the Vice Chair and some of our colleagues in the Democratic caucus this morning. This morning, House Democrats were again, last week, I should say, House Democrats were again the adults in the room when it came to turning the page on another MAGA sideshow. I said sideshow, by the way, just so we know. We want to govern and we want to make life better for Americans. It's imperative that we do that, and it's imperative that we move forward from the reckless agenda that Marjorie Taylor Greene continues to advance. It's time to put people over politics and to focus on the most pressing challenges that working families face in this country. The Vice Chair and I are pleased to be joined by two members of our caucus, Representative Andrea Salinas from Oregon and Amelia Sykes from Ohio, who were elected by their constituents to put people over politics and to deliver real results for their communities. Our legislative accomplishments have laid the foundation for a strong economic recovery, and these members will tell you that there is much more we can do to lower costs, grow the middle class, and defend freedom. And we continue to partner with the administration, which launched Infrastructure Week by highlighting our Invest in America agenda, creating more than 15 million good-paying jobs, bringing back domestic manufacturing from overseas and strengthening supply chains. That's going to be the focus of the remainder of our Congress, working across the aisle whenever we can, wherever we can, to raise the quality of life for working families. And that means building safer communities, as we also honor our brave law enforcement officers this week here in the nation's capital. Next, I'll turn it over to the Vice Chair of the Democratic Caucus, Ted Lieu.
Thank you, Chairman Aguilar. As Chairman Aguilar noted, we celebrate 2 weeks. This week we've got National Police Week as well as Infrastructure Week. In terms of Police Week, I honor all those who choose a profession where they could be called upon to risk their lives. Having served on active duty in the U.S. military, I respect all those who wear a uniform and choose to protect and to serve, including our police officers and all those in law enforcement. And then in terms of Infrastructure Week, let me start off by saying that we got a good economic report today showing that inflation has cooled slightly. It went downwards in April. At the same time, prices are too high. And that's why when Democrats were in control, we passed laws such as the infrastructure law that's going to help ease supply chain shortages. It's going to make transporting goods easier and faster and more efficient. That's going to help reduce prices. We also passed the Chips and Science Act, which is going to bring back high-tech chip manufacturing in the United States. Chips are in lots of consumer products. That's going to help reduce prices. The Biden administration has been working on reducing junk fees. We also passed a law when Democrats were in control to reduce medical costs. And so Democrats are focused on lowering prices and lowering costs. And with that, it is my great honor to introduce the amazing freshman representative from Oregon, Representative Salinas.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Chairman Aguilar, Vice Chair Lieu, and all my colleagues here today for hosting this press conference on our continued fight to put people over politics. Some of you might know this, but before I got elected, I actually served as a staffer for several members of Congress, including former Congresswoman Darlene Hooley from the Willamette Valley of Oregon. She represented parts of my current district. And I mention this because even just a few years ago, there was still that feeling that we could work together across the aisle to actually get things done. Bipartisanship didn't seem to feel as difficult as it does today. But now, as a member myself, it's hard to reconcile what we're seeing from the other side of the aisle. Extremists like Donald Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene have a chokehold on today's Republican Party. And their only goal is to wreak havoc on democracy and take away some of our most fundamental rights. Meanwhile, my Democratic colleagues and I stand here today as a united front. We stand together in our efforts to push back against extremism and to protect democracy and the rule of law. And we fight any and all attempts to take away your rights as Americans, including the right to choose whether and when to start or grow a family. Extreme Republicans have made clear that they won't stop until abortion is banned nationwide, including in my home state of Oregon, where we have some of the greatest protections. They want to make IVF, contraception, and other life-saving medical procedures illegal and criminalize women who seek care and the doctors who provide it. But it's just not women that they're targeting. We've seen attempts to make drastic cuts to SNAP and take food out of the mouths of my veterans, seniors, and hungry children. And they want to send us backwards in the fight against climate change, doing away with climate-smart investments from the Inflation Reduction Act that are incredibly popular to the farmers in my district and will help them stay resilient and profitable in the long term. Extreme politics have become the norm in Congress, but they don't have to be. Oregonians sent me here to get things done, and I continue to do just that, focusing on sensible bipartisan policies. And I'll continue to urge my Republican colleagues to meet me in the middle and help pass a truly bipartisan farm bill that levels the playing field for families and rural communities. And I will keep working across the aisle whenever possible. Despite all the noise, there are still sensible Republicans in Congress who want to make progress for their constituents. I am always ready to put people over politics and forge solutions together. And with that, I'll pass it over to my friend and colleague from Ohio, Congresswoman Amelia Sykes.
Good morning, everyone. Good to see you. My name is Amelia Sykes, and I am honored to serve Ohio's 13th Congressional District as their member of Congress. And as a first-term member of Congress, I was ready and excited to get to work on the real issues that my constituents care about: lowering costs, improving public safety, expanding opportunity, and protecting our fundamental freedoms. Unfortunately, extreme politicians and Republicans have focused more on political games and antics, political infighting, like last week's motion to vacate, and that's taking the priority over governing. These political games distract from the real issues that our constituents face every single day. It's truly shameful. The American people deserve so much better. But I won't let the chaos of the House majority distract me from the reason that I'm here, and it's the people of Ohio's 13th District. My constituents sent me to Congress to focus on the challenges they face, like the high cost of living. So that's exactly what I'm going to do and will continue to do. It's why I introduced a common sense legislation, the Lower Your Taxes Act, which would enhance the Earned Income Tax Credit and the Child Tax Credit, all while ensuring greedy corporations pay their fair share. By expanding the Earned Income Tax Credit and Child Tax Credit, we're investing in working people and putting more money in the pockets of people, their hard-earned money, at a time when families need a little bit more breathing room. My constituents want and need real solutions like the Lower Your Taxes Act, something that will improve their everyday lives, not more divisive rhetoric. In a recent radio interview, I was asked whether or not the Lower Your Taxes Act had a realistic chance of passing. And it was disappointing that I couldn't share a resounding yes, because this is a good idea, that each of these provisions in the bill would help ease the pain of inflation, that it would lift families out of poverty and provide needed tax relief, all while ensuring greedy corporations are paying their fair share. But the reason this bill is not going to get a fair hearing is because Republicans want to play games, partisan games, rather than address the needs and concerns of the American people. I know that bipartisanship can be accomplished. I served as the minority leader in the State House in a super minority, and we were able to get things done, real things done, including expanding the Earned Income Tax Credit. And it could be accomplished here in Congress, but my colleagues have to make the decision. It is their desire or will to not or to put people over politics. They can join me and my Democratic colleagues in leading and putting people over politics. And we invite them every single day to join on the bandwagon in order to help the American people. So to my colleagues in the majority, we say enough is enough. Let's stop playing games and let's get to work. Thank you, and I'll turn the program back over to Chair Aguilar.
Thank you, Amelia and Andrea. Appreciate your leadership here in Congress. Questions? Amika? It's disappointing to see someone in that position as Speaker of the House to go up and to speak negatively of independent criminal investigations is just odd, but that's the price that House Republicans have to pay, and that's the price specifically Speaker Johnson has to pay. to have President Trump have his back. And so the parade of elected officials and Republicans in the House and Senate who go up specifically to get around the gag order that the former president is under, it just never fails to amaze us. The depths at which they will go in order to bend a knee to the former president. But that's exactly the nature of House Republicans these days. Scott?
You mentioned, Vice Chair Lieu mentioned some of the police bills that are up this week and hearings on police matters and all the events going on this week. Do you all find it more difficult to work with Republicans on police issues when they call January 6th defendants hostages and deny the impact on police, the Capitol attack?
Yeah, it's pretty hard. I think all of us, and we've talked about this before, I mean, all of us, come into these chambers, into our jobs, and we want to try to, work with our colleagues to get things done. We want to get to yes on bills. This morning at caucus, we talked about some of the police week bills that Democrats supported in the 117th Congress, allowing more flexibility for local law enforcement when they're applying for grants. I mean, boosting mental health resources for law enforcement. I know Amelia Sykes is carrying a bill that would offer additional law enforcement support. These are things that we can do. When we're working together and when we are in charge, and when Leader Jeffries is Speaker Jeffries, those are the types of bills that we will advocate. But yeah, Scott, I mean, it's a little more difficult when they want to try to whitewash what happened. When they will stand with some law enforcement, but they won't stand with others. Specifically, I know Zoe Lofgren has written a letter to Speaker Johnson advocating for the plaque that was passed as a commemoration of January 6th. This was passed into law. It was supposed to be installed, honoring law enforcement on the west steps of the Capitol specifically, and Speaker Johnson hasn't acted on it.
Have you all got response to that?
I'm not aware of any response. I didn't check with Representative Lofgren on her letter, but I haven't heard of a response. But it's disappointing. That doesn't stop the work that we're going to do. That doesn't stop us, as Andrea Salinas mentioned, from every day trying to work with our colleagues in order to get things done. But I've talked to you about this in the past. Other members of the January 6th committee have. It does shape our perspective here clearly.
I agree with what Chairman Aguilar said. I also want to note that what we're seeing from the Republican conference are a series of messaging bills on a variety of topics, none of which are going to pass the U.S. Senate. In contrast, when Democrats were in control, we took action, such as passing the American Rescue Plan that provided funding to local cities and states. That's where most of the funding goes for law enforcement, and we were able to save a lot of positions at cities and states, including those in law enforcement, from being laid off because of what Democrats did to actually fund these agencies. And then if you look at this term, in terms of community-funded projects, Democrats secured more funding for law enforcement than our Republican counterparts. And so Democrats believe in actions, and our actions send a strong signal that we honor those who protect and who serve.
House Republicans have HHS Secretary Javier Becerra up here on Capitol Hill before the Education Committee today, claiming that he's overstepped his boundaries with policies that involve religious liberties and abortions. Just want to get your thoughts on that from the Democrats in the House.
Well, look, what we've seen time and time again is, House Republicans level attacks that aren't based on facts. We appreciate the fact that Secretary Becerra continues to want to expand opportunity for everyday Americans to have health care. We appreciate that HHS delivered through the rulemaking process that the Biden administration supported health care for individuals to DACA status that was announced last week. These are things that we can and should be doing, expanding opportunity to people. That's exactly what that's exactly who Javier Becerra was when he was a member here, and that's the type of secretary that we get. And so I'm excited about his leadership and thankful that he's here testifying on the president's budget and what the priorities are.
Excuse me, on the Israel bill this week, there's a statement of administration policy and a veto tried about it, whip on it. Are you expecting many Democrats to vote with Republicans on it? And did this statement of administration policy
I think the substance of the bill is what's important to House Democrats. We believe in supporting our colleague, our friends and allies in Israel. We also believe that the president sets foreign policy as well, and we understand that there's different viewpoints within our own caucus on this, but overwhelmingly, House Democrats will reject this overly political bill that did not come through committee. It's advocated by the chair of the Defense Appropriations Committee. I'm on that committee, and you know, overwhelmingly, House Democrats will vote no on the bill. We appreciate the president's leadership as he seeks to work with our colleagues in Israel to protect them from threats not just in Gaza but from Hezbollah and others. And this bill would seek to undo what the president has done. It would also, we want to acknowledge, fence off and defund the Department of Defense, the Department of State, from efforts that they are undertaking as well. And so we don't believe that that is a thoughtful foreign policy and support the president. Our voice is look at our track record and what we've done to reduce the costs that everyday Americans face. But our work isn't done, and none of us are up here saying that our work is complete. Our work is incomplete because we haven't done enough in order to lower those costs. But we will advocate for priorities that continue to do that. When I think about housing, and look, all of us come from areas that feel this, concern, every day. Efforts that Maxine Waters has taken, policies that we have tried to get over the finish line to make investments, in affordable housing, to drive down those costs, to allow increased home ownership opportunities. Those are things that our communities are talking about, and those are the investments that we feel are worth making. So time and time again, we will continue to do this. We've tried to check oil companies from their efforts as well in the past. Those are the things that the public can expect us to continue to champion. But we understand the costs that they're facing. We understand that it's difficult. We hear it. We acknowledge it. We know that we can do two things at once. We can both acknowledge that the president has created 15 million, good-paying jobs around this country, while realizing that costs continue to rise for Americans, and that there is more work to be done. As the vice chair said, this is something, lowering cost is something that the caucus is very focused on. Policies that we can introduce and implement within the next Congress when we're in charge is very much top of mind.
Thank you. Just to follow up on the bill coming up tomorrow, the Israel bill. Are you worried, though, if there are members that do come out tomorrow and vote their conscience? Obviously, there are several that have a problem with the president's policy on pausing aid. Are you worried that this would undermine the president's foreign policy, that it would be a public rebuke on the House floor?
No, there have been times that passed where a small group of members has disagreed with the majority of the Democratic caucus, and that's part of the rich mosaic of guiding this caucus. And we come from every corner of our country, and people will have different viewpoints along the way. We have oftentimes quoted Jim Clyburn: "Unity does not mean unanimity." And that's very clear and very evident. We have different perspectives that we bring. The important thing is that House Democrats continued to put up votes to protect Israel and to support our national security imperatives and priorities across the globe. We are the ones that put up the votes for the government funding bill that unlocked $3.8 billion to aid within our MOU with Israel. We're the ones that put up a significant number of votes on the National Security Supplemental, over $20 billion in aid to Israel with humanitarian assistance around the world. Those are the things that House Democrats will continue to do if given the opportunity to govern. And so that's overwhelmingly where we stand on these issues. But I'm not distracted or diverted from a few members who have a different viewpoint. In the back.
Thank you, Chairman. So Representative Byron Donald has a bill, the DC Crime Bill of 2024, that aims to address the crime problem in DC. However, DC has a law that's taking into effect on Saturday that pretty much addresses crime in the city. And so, in the Republicans I've talked to have said that they feel like Congress should have a say in what goes on in DC because, Congress has jurisdiction over the whole country. And, a lot of DC people feel like that infringes upon their, supposed statehood. And so what I want to know is, where do Democrats stand on this bill? And additionally, do you think that Congress should have a harder, heavier hand in DC politics and how the people who live in the city govern themselves?
Democrats overwhelmingly believe in home rule, in the people of D.C. Having to make decisions regarding their own bills and legislation. I'm surrounded. I was the only one who didn't go up here, who didn't serve in the state house. We have state senators and state representatives, majority and minority leaders, over here in the state houses as well. All of us. I was a local mayor and guided local budgets related to public safety. All of us have tried to spend a significant amount of time, working to keep our communities safe, balancing the interests of constituents and communities with law enforcement groups and organizations, wanting to seek justice for people while offering, opportunity. And so, we've all had to wear those hats. And most of us arrive here from the position of supporting, home rule and allowing individuals in D.C. to help guide those efforts, but we understand the tricky nature and our role here in funding some of those. Overwhelmingly, this is viewed as not a serious effort that the Republican majority is undertaking. Ranking Member Jamie Raskin spoke specifically, about this bill, in caucus. He talked about the example he gave was, it's a 40-year sentence for carjacking within D.C. In Kentucky, where the chairman of the committee is from, there's no statute for carjacking. So the people of D.C. do have rules and laws in place that protect their residents. We overwhelmingly will come down in support of home rule and reject this, overly political effort that the majority is undertaking.
Quick follow-up to that.
Sure.
Are Democrats worried that it may seem as though Republicans care about addressing crime in the city more than Democrats are?
No, because we believe we have a track record of supporting law enforcement and supporting public safety. Time and time again, you heard the vice chair, the data says on community funding projects, our colleagues up here on this, up here, as well as colleagues in the Democratic caucus, overwhelmingly put resources into our local law enforcement agencies. We want to increase the flexibility that local law enforcement agencies have to draw down on those federal resources. That's what Amelia Sykes' bill would do. In the last Congress, we did those types of things, put investments in mental health services, the gun safety legislation that also had red flag laws. Is a part of it. Those are things that we believe in that actually keep our community safe, in contrasted to House Republicans who support the Republican Study Committee budget that drastically cuts public safety. They've supported, budgets last year that reduced, across the board, public safety grants and aid to the Department of Justice. Those are things. So we just have a track record in supporting our local law enforcement agencies and public safety in general that we're not concerned about that. Thank you.
Thank you.